By now, most fans of Zero motorcycles know the big news. For the 2022 model year, Zero has a new 17.3 kilowatt battery pack and is offering a total battery capacity of up to 20.9 kilowatts with the power tank option. Meanwhile, the last generation SR has been switched over to the SRF platform, essentially becoming the new base model SRF. With the optional power tank, top-of-the-line 2022 Zeros are good for 113 miles at 70 miles per hour or 139 miles at 55 miles per hour. All the details on torque, horsepower, pricing, and the entire model range are on Zero's website, which is linked below in this video on YouTube and in the evrider.tv website post. Zero is adopting Tesla's model of offering to unlock battery capacity and other features via its Cipher III Plus system, of course, for a fee. There's a lot to go over, including speculation in terms of what might be next for charging. SRF owner Scott Harkless has a unique perspective on Zero's advancements. He's the electrical engineer behind eMoto design, which offers a dual J1772 charging plug option for Zeros, allowing them to charge from two J plugs simultaneously to take full advantage of Zero's optional 12 kilowatt rapid charging system, which for 2022 will be able to be upgraded to 13 kilowatts. Scott just got back to Florida after riding his Zero SRF from the Jacksonville Beach Pier to the Oceanside, California Pier to set a new cross-country electric motorcycle record, which still stood but was already being challenged at the time of this video's publication. Scott and I got on a video call to go into the nitty-gritty of Zero's new batteries and Cipher III Plus. We also discussed the elephant in the room. When will Zero finally adopt DC fast charging? As an electrical engineer, Scott has some speculation on how Zero just might be able to roll out CCS fast charging without overhauling its voltage architecture. I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. So this is easily the biggest model year launch for Zero since the SRF came out. I mean, the new Cipher system and the battery capacity growing like this and the weight staying the same, some pretty nice advancements. What's your take on the new model year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot to go through and digest, and the community's kind of doing that right now. But I like to try to find the underlying truth and reality of what's happened here. And I think that reality is they have developed a new battery pack that is more energy dense. I think that caught a lot of people off guard. Most people thought that was going to happen a couple of years down the road from now. And not only more dense, also it looks like they've taken some steps to have better cooling, which is important for charging and riding at higher speeds. So yeah, I think that alone, this whole configurator thing aside, that is super exciting. Everybody should be super excited about that.
Yeah, I was looking at the monolith, the pictures they put up and reading the descriptions, and they are using the phrase active cooling. And from what I can see, I do take that to mean that they've actually added some sort of fan system to the monolith itself. What do you think?
I think they're trying very hard to stay air cooled in solid state. I don't think it would be like a fan. I think it's active cooled in that I bet that it's designed to take air to channel through the battery as you're riding rather than just around it. So that's my hypothesis anyway. I don't know if that's accurate or not. So we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah. Until we hear somebody go on the record and say one way or the other, we can't be sure. Well, and to me, some of the biggest news of all is the Cipher system, because the idea that they're adopting the Tesla model, if I understand it correctly, it sounds like all the bikes are going to have, when I say all the bikes, I mean the SR, SRF, and SRS are all going to have the same battery roll off the line, but it will depend if you decide to unlock the extra capacity via software updates, or you buy it off the line with the full capacity by buying the premium editions right off the line. It sounds like the new SR, which is basically now a low-end SRF, has adopted the former status of the S. It used to be that
Yeah.
the S was the stepping stone to the more powerful SRF. And of course, now it's staying as the entry level model on the old platform. So now the SRF looks to take over the old SR's mantle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think the important thing to keep in mind here, we're definitely going to get into that topic that's the hot topic of all this, which is what's going on here. Zero, like, why are there so many options? But before we get into that, I totally see what Zero is trying to do from a manufacturing standpoint. I actually work for a manufacturer, and the fewer parts you can be dealing with, especially with these big things, the battery packs and whatnot, the more optimal it is for you. Because rather than buying 100 14.4 kilowatt hour battery packs from Phrasis and 100 of the 17.3s, they can get 200 of the 17.3s, probably get some cost savings, have some efficiency, not worry about having 50 14.4s sitting on the shelves for the next 5 years because they didn't build enough or didn't sell enough. So they're just trying to make their process more efficient. So that's what's really ultimately leading to all this, just making the bikes the same. That way they can set up one assembly line, maybe two, build SRFs here, build SRSs over here, and streamline their operations and costs a bit. So that's what's really going on. I think the reaction of all this is just, whoa. I think the options are a little much.
They are, but I also wonder if it'll actually, in some ways, help owners with resale value. But then again, maybe not, because we don't know how the unlocks are going to be handled. And the reason I say that, we think of Tesla, and one of the things that they'll do is, as I know you're a Tesla owner, you occasionally, for example, if you bought a standard plus range, it could be resold by Tesla as an extended range, because of course they put the same battery in, and some owners they opt not to pay the additional. But of course a new owner might, or they might unlock it right out of the gate to increase its sales value. So I'm going to be really curious to see how Zero handles this in the resale market as well, whether those unlocks continue to the next owner, or if an owner didn't unlock, at what point. It's an opportunity, I would think, for Zero to make some money on the back end.
Yeah, they definitely have to make that clear transfer of ownership of these features. I got to be honest, I'm not even sure how that works with Tesla. For example, their autopilot, full self-driving, that's an expensive upgrade. And so people might spend $10,000 on that upgrade. I don't even know if it transfers to the car. I don't think it does. And so people have to think about that when they're making that $10,000 purchase. If it's not going to transfer with the car and it's not going to go with you, you're literally throwing that equity out the window. So I do hope Zero is very clear about that, so that it does carry with it if somebody made that investment in the bike.
Well, and I've got mixed feelings about this. I'm looking at their Cipher Experience Builder right now, and I'm looking at the 2020 Zero SRF Premium, which, of course, are the bikes that we own. And I see that even, the good news is it sounds like they're going to bring our bikes into the future as well. Although at the same time, I've got mixed feelings about this. So one of the things they're advertising is, quote, 10% faster charge, and that is a $345 unlock. Now I saw on rideapart.com, and I believe I also saw it on Zero's site buried somewhere, that our current 6 kilowatt chargers could be up when the software upgrade comes, if we pay to unlock it, to 7 kilowatts. And of course we have a loss. I'm sure you're in about the same boat. I usually can never get more than 5.7 with the efficiency losses from the charger to the bike. Every once in a while, I'll peak for a few seconds at 5.8. So I'm guessing this would mean that, for example, my Zero, if I were to pay to unlock, would go up to either 6.6 or 6.7 kilowatts. In reality, if I were to charge at a station that, puts out that much. Is that more or less your read?
Yeah, my thought on this, just coming from an engineering standpoint, is if you look at the open market for chargers, you actually don't find a lot of 3. You find a lot of 3.3 though. So what I think has happened here is that those have been 3.3 chargers all along. And for whatever reason, Zero's throttling back to 3 for maybe to be conservative, make sure these things last through warranty or whatever. Maybe they've done a lot more testing since then, since those decisions were made, and just determined that they're good. We can actually add this 10% boost, and it's not going to hurt anything. So I guess the way I look at this from our standpoint, being owners already, we bought our bikes back in 2020, right? Or 2019, yeah. So the way I look at it from our standpoint is, we knew what we were getting when we bought it, right? We knew that we were getting this 6 kilowatt charging bike with certain range capacity and certain features as far as the electronics. So that's the part where, even though I would love for them to come out and say, hey guys, free stuff, enjoy your new update. Even though I would love for them to do that, I'm less bitter about them wanting to charge us, because the alternative for us is to go out and buy a new bike, right? So I actually think it's kind of cool that they're like, hey guys, we still care about you 2020 owners. We made some improvements on this new platform that just so happened to benefit yours as well. So, if you want to unlock a little bit more stuff without buying a new bike, here's some options for you. So personally, I think I'll spring for the park assist, which is cool. And then probably the charging, just because I'm the charging guy now. That's what I've become. So I got to make sure that works. And I like to charge fast. So that extra kilowatt would be nice. And then, yeah, probably not the nav for me, because I'm just never a big fan of, OEM nav systems. The phone's always the latest, greatest, because it's hooked up to the web. Honestly, the Tesla's the only nav system I've ever been satisfied with, just because it's literally Google Maps attached to LTE network. So yeah, but I am happy that the other stuff's being released to us.
Yeah.
So,
and for people that might be watching that may not be up to speed like we are on what you're talking about right now, the quote I'm seeing for the 2020s to add the on-dash navigation would be $195.
yeah.
And to add the parking mode would also be $195. And again, my understanding on all of these, because there is an asterisk on all of these, so my understanding is, to get any of this, you have to go to a dealer. So that is a little unlike the Tesla model, where you could do it all via over the air. So I'm a little surprised that they're advertising it this way, but maybe they want to do some testing to make sure there are no bugs with this, especially in the spring. I don't know, because it sounds to me as though they're not going to let us just, come out one morning, hit install firmware update, and magically have this stuff. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. But out of the gate, that's the way they're currently advertising it.
Yeah, I think that those decisions are probably based on security, because if some smart guy is able to tap into their cell network or whatever and figure out how they're actually flipping the bit that makes those features turn on, then the cat's out of the bag, right? So I don't think there's any major hardware changes that are happening. When you take it to the dealer, they're literally probably just hooking up with their Zero specific diagnostics interface, authenticating with Zero servers to actually confirm that the bike that those features have been paid for, and then applying it to the bike in a secure way. So I think that's all it's all about. Maybe the parking assist might require a change of a wiring harness. I'm not sure, because the motor controller has been capable of this all along, but maybe they had to add a couple extra wires or whatever. I doubt it. I'm pretty sure this is all just, security software, kind of upgrades that the dealer needs to do in person to keep it secure. That's probably the rationale there.
Getting back to the 2022 model years and that extra battery capacity that they're going to be able to have, I'll tell you where I'm most impressed is weight. When you look at the Livewire 1 from Harley Davidson, and of course now Livewire is its own brand, or you look at Energica, you look at their battery capacities as compared to weight. That, I think, is where Zero does have a significant advantage. I was looking at the weight. So the new SR comes in at 495 pounds, and the new SRF comes in at 500. And going from memory, I believe our bikes came off the showroom floors at 498 pounds.
Yeah, something like that.
So that is significantly less than the Livewire, the Energica, I believe. And again, going from memory, guys, so please bear in mind, I think you were looking at somewhere around 550 for it. And for the Energica Rebel, depending on the model year, you were looking at what, about 650 pounds. And I know that Energica has been working to get those weights down as well. But of course, that brings us to the elephant in the room. As impressive as these gains are, especially in the level 2 world, I mean, when you talk about Harley or Energica, they can't touch zero when it comes to level 2 charging. But I know a lot of us were disappointed that a CCS announcement did not come. As an electrical engineer, though, you've got some unique perspectives that the rest of us don't have. Talk to me a little bit about your best guesses on what this might mean roadmap wise for zero. You know, are we going to have to wait until they go to a higher voltage, or is there some magic converter that might be able to be constructed at some point down the road to, say, replace the existing rapid charger?
It's an excellent question. I can only speculate. So sure. I think it would be crazy to think that Zero is not does not have CCS in their roadmap somewhere. How soon is anybody's guess, but I got to think that they do. The real question will be how they decide to approach their drivetrain as a result, because as we all know, the reason why they don't support CCS right now is I think CCS bottoms out at about 250 volts DC, where Zero is operating a battery pack down in the 100, 115 volt range. So the DC charger cannot go low enough to meet the battery pack's needs. So that's the real issue here. So Zero, I'm sure they already made this decision long ago, but at some point they had this decision, which was we need to either A, redesign the drivetrain to accommodate that higher voltage DC and take all of the pros and cons along with that, or we need to come up with some sort of CCS interface, like you said, basically a DC-DC converter is what we engineers would call it. And we need to use that as our core charging technology and keep our drivetrain tech intact. If I had to guess, I think Zero would take that approach. Especially, I think what has happened here kind of shows that they do have respect for building on to their older gen stuff, supporting previous owners. And so I think they probably see the benefit of designing a high powered DC-DC converter so that they could retrofit older bikes. And I think there's some other secret advantages there too that I hope that they're thinking of. I've always kind of wanted to talk to them and figure this out, but I hope that they're thinking about this, that an onboard AC charger is just one step away from being a DC-DC converter. It actually has a little bit more to it as a rectifier in the front end. So what I'm saying is, I think they could come up with this combined charger that can take high-powered AC input and high-powered DC input and provide excellent charging capabilities with both. And if they could pull that off, man, that would be the dominating electric bike for sure. A bike that could do, I don't know, 12 kilowatts AC and DC, or 18 kilowatts AC or DC. Yeah, sign me up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and, you know, I mean, that would be the best balance, really, because, I mean, obviously the Achilles foot of Energica and Livewire is the level 2 charging. I mean, 3 kilowatts, I think, for the Energica is the top level 2 speed. And of course, other than the connector, of course, Livewire doesn't even have that capability. Yes, you can charge it maybe 1.3 kilowatts if you find a level 2 station, but we know we just know that's not going to cut it. So it is exciting. And your guess, again, I am not an engineer or a software developer, but your guess to me makes a lot of sense only because of their Cipher updates. They seem to be building everything on this new Cipher software. And it seems strange to me they would keep rolling all this out with the architecture they have if they had planned, you know, say next model year and switching over to a brand new voltage system that would support
Yeah.
CCS. But you tell me, as a developer type, is that yet another reason to hope that perhaps that magic converter might be coming at some point?
I think so. They are investing a lot in this platform. I wouldn't be surprised if this platform is directly being used somehow with this Polaris thing that they've been doing. So I think they probably designed it to be like that, to use it for multiple things, not just our wonderful SRF and SRS motorcycles here. So yes, I think that they have a stock in this current drivetrain. And there's a lot of other disadvantages to going to a higher voltage platform as well. So they'd have to invest in not only redesigning the drivetrain, which would be quite an effort. There's other things too, like cost. 300-volt motor controllers are going to cost more, and manufacturers do not like it when costs go up, because then they have to raise their list prices, and that's not cool, right? That list price is kind of dictated by the competition right now. So there's that aspect. Then there's a safety aspect, getting trained to work on a 100-volt system versus a 300-volt system, two different worlds.
Sure.
So they have to think about that when it comes to dealer certification. That could actually be one reason why Energica struggles to get dealers here. I know there's a lot of stuff playing a role there, but getting more people trained to work on a platform of that voltage. They basically avoid all of that if they can come up with a cool converter system. And the downside to the converter system is that in a true CCS architecture, the idea is that you're saving the weight and space that's occupied by the onboard chargers. They would not be doing that, right? Because they're going to have to build this big DC-DC converter. However, that's what the importance of combining it with AC is, because everybody wants that too, I think, especially in people who live in Florida like us, where DCs aren't exactly that easy to find.
Yeah, and I think, in the US especially, but even over in Europe, I mean, from what I've read and seen from some of our Zero colleagues overseas, AC charging over there makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of high-powered AC chargers over there. And of course, that actually, in many cases, is an advantage for Zero. Because, to me, it's not as much about the charging speed as about the infrastructure. I wouldn't really care about CCS. In fact, I'd prefer level 2 if it weren't for the infrastructure. And the reason I say that, level 2 is almost always cheaper than CCS. I mean, CCS, depending where you go, it costs a boatload to charge. And we all know often level 2 is still free. And while that can't last, but yeah, I mean, if we really want to be able to tour with our Zeros as normals, not as early adopters, both standards just have to be supported.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. We're lucky. A lot of the Eastern US, especially, in Florida, it's hard for me to find a charger that I have to pay for. Most of them are free, and that's great. I found that would not to be the case as much in California, but in some ways I kind of preferred that, because I'd go, I was doing a lot of road trips over there, going long distances, and it was just nice to know that even though I'm paying 33 cents a kilowatt hour, that the charging station was available, because it wasn't being blocked by somebody charging their Model 3 or whatever overnight just because it was free. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, we're lucky. It's pretty much a free infrastructure here because our cost of energy is so low, about 14 cents a kilowatt or something like that. So yeah, that certainly is a huge advantage. And then other advantages I found is just accessibility. The DCs are primarily off major interstates and things like that. And here in places like Orlando, it's even worse for political reasons to find DC chargers and the city areas where certain utilities operate. I'm not going to name any names. So yeah, just the freedom that L2 offers to go off the beaten path and take some weird routes, and where we all want to ride our motorcycles anyway.
Right.
So.
Well, just last week I went to Crescent City. In fact, folks can check out a video I did. One of our fellow Zero owners, Lloyd Reeves, has a business over there, and he's got an electric sub he built from scratch. Really cool. But But the point being, I mean, I was able to charge up free there, and it was a wonderful little town to go ahead and explore. And level two, we can't know. And I have seen the state's infrastructure plans, and I got to tell you, it's almost all CCS. But if somebody got a grant myself for a level two charger at my former employer, WJCT, I do know that from a cost perspective, it is so much more affordable to put in level two chargers. I mean, you could put in a bank of 6 probably for what you could do maybe for just 1 or 2. And you also don't have surge pricing. It depends on the utility. But of course, when you start talking about level 3 charging, DC charging, a lot of the utilities they're surge pricing, which
Yeah.
is going to just hike prices. So even if Zero does adopt CCS, I certainly hope that level 2 will continue to grow, because I think for motorcyclists, particularly, if you have a choice between level 2 and level 3, and if you're charging at 13 kilowatts anyway, there's really, at this point, technology wise, very little advantage, at least after that first or second charge of the day.
Yeah, right. Obviously these DC chargers are designed to charge at a very high rate for vehicles, for cars. So the benefit we're going to get out of that on an electric motorcycle with a relatively small battery pack is minimal. So yeah, we all know about the whole 1C charging or somewhere around there. So yeah, we're not going to get more than 20, 30 kilowatts tops, and that's going beyond 1C. So yeah, that's basically the situation. It's really just an infrastructure problem. So I was excited to see the news the other day, or somebody was talking about this the other day when this all came up. I'm sure the news is older, but there are companies investing in the level 2 infrastructure quite heavily. So I know Rivian has plans to do that, right? And I believe it was
General Motors. General Motors
Yeah.
just announced within the last 2 weeks they're planning on rolling out 40,000 level 2 chargers, and I forget the kilowatt rate, but it was pretty darn high. I mean, it was.
Yeah, they were going for like more the top end of what
They
the
were.
J72 spec can handle, like 18, 19 kilowatts,
Correct.
80 amps.
And
Yeah,
one of
so-
the things that's really encouraging is now the cars are coming with much higher. I mean, it seems like now, if you're buying a car, 7.4 kilowatts is pretty much the minimum entry level for level 2, which also bodes well for its future as far as Zero motorcycles goes. I can't know that, obviously. And again, the momentum, I mean, if you look at what's been built out, largely because of the Dieselgate VW settlement, the momentum's been CCS. And of course, we've seen Tesla make another announcement that it is going to greatly expand its superchargers and open them up to CCS vehicles. In fact, they're already starting tests overseas on that. They said by the end of the year, but we also know it's Tesla, and Tesla rarely adheres to the original announcement schedule. So I'd be shocked if we saw it in the US that quick, but it's probably going to hit before the end of 2022.
Yeah, I was actually excited this morning to see that somebody overseas had actually charged their Energica on a Tesla station for the first time, which I thought was really cool. Nice. I like that trend. So,
hey, listen, getting back to the Zeros, I know a lot of the viewers know what you do with eMoto and your dual J plug charger. And I'm sure folks are going to be interested. And I know you're not going to necessarily have the answers yet, but speculate if you can about the Cipher system and what it may or may not mean for your setup, for anybody that might be considering getting a rapid charger and ordering one of your dual J plug setups.
Yeah, a great question. And obviously I'm wondering some things too, but my hunch is, like I said, with the marginal increase, the 10% increase of charging, I don't foresee any problems there because they obviously haven't changed anything physical with the bikes as far as what chargers they're using or connections or anything like that. I think the thing that I'll primarily keep my eye on is if anything internally has changed with the 2022 series bikes. I'm optimistic that very little has as far as the interconnects and stuff that I use to interface to the charging system, but better safe than sorry. So yeah, I'm anticipating it's just a larger battery pack and therefore it's going to take a little longer to charge, but I think the core charging hardware and connectors have not changed or will not change. So I think it bodes well for the dual J charging system, but we'll see. I just got to get my hands on one of those bikes when they start rolling off the assembly line. So
Well, yeah, well,
Zero, if
so
you're listening, you can send me one.
there you go. Now, if for some reason Zero doesn't do that, is it enough to get you to trade model years, or are you going to stick with the 2020?
It's a really good question. First of all, I have this affinity for my bike now after going through so
Yeah.
much with it. Like it's the kind of thing like it would break my heart to sell that bike. So if I do get another one, it might have to be a second one just because of my love affair with the Zero that has got me through so much in the last few months.
Well, and for those that
So
may not know your personal story, first off, you made it across the country from Jacksonville Beach, Florida to Oceanside, California?
yeah, Oceanside, just north
Uh,
of San Diego.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it set a new cross country electric motorcycle record. And you've done a lot of modifications to your bike. In addition to your dual J plug, you've gone ahead and halfway converted it to an SRS with the longer seat, a Corbin seat, and all the shad cases. And yeah, you've made some nice tweaks to that SRF for sure.
Yeah, I try not to mess with the core drivetrain stuff, obviously, but yeah, obviously the rapid charger is a cool upgrade. And then yeah, there's just something about that SRS tail that I really like, especially the Corbin seat design for it. It's more passenger friendly, a little larger. And then yeah, I like how you can get those cases on the back if you want to, and still keep those cool like aluminum bars on the side look, without losing all that. So
One area where Scott and I have a different point of view is on Zero's new Cipher store, where owners can pay to unlock different features like additional battery capacity or navigation, each at an additional charge. Is it a case of nickel and diming customers?
yeah, I guess my primary thought here is there's kind of this famous moment in Apple history when Steve Jobs was, sitting down with a bunch of engineers and they were trying to come up with all these different versions of stuff. And at some point, he just kind of slammed his arm down on the table, said, "Enough, guys," and drew quadrants on a wall and was like, professional, consumer, portable, desktop, like simplify, give people simple options. Options are great, but we got to simplify it here. And just looking at the spread here, if I were in Zero's position, I think the first thing I'd probably think about getting rid of is the whole concept of standard versus premium. I feel like the SR has now become what it should be regarded as standard, and the SRF and SRS should be premium packages, and therefore giving people kind of three basic options to start with. And then I do agree that some of these things are worthwhile additions, like navigation. Not everybody's going to want that. That's kind of cool for some people. They might be willing to spring that extra money. Though I do think some of these things they should consider standard with the new platform. I'm grateful as an existing 2020 owner that I can add increased charging capacity and the parking mode. That's pretty cool. I didn't expect that stuff when I bought it. I knew what I was getting into. So I see that as a bonus worth, spending a little money for. However, somebody who's buying a brand new Zero SRS, I think the parking mode should be standard just because it is with competitors. It'll help them, stay competitive in that way. And I kind of feel the same way about the charging too. Like if the charger's capable of it and they've determined that, they should just turn that on and leave it be. Again, the SRS is the premium package, or SRF is the premium package. They should get that full 6.6 kilowatts of charging out the door. So just my thoughts. I'm not super opposed to this whole pay to play thing. Some of it's makes perfect sense. Again, they're just trying to simplify. But regardless of what you do, you're going to get a 17.3 kilowatt hour battery pack. And you have the flexibility to update that later if you want to take advantage of it. I don't think that's a terrible thing. It's a judgment call on their end, because they could give us smaller battery packs, but then they'd be having to juggle all that stuff in the back end. So
Yeah,
so that's my yeah.
yeah, no, and I'm going to play a bit of a contrarian here, in the sense that it does allow Zero to get that price point down. Now, you might argue that, well, they're already putting that stuff in, but I mean, Looking at the price spread for the base SR, you're looking at 18,000, 17,995. And
Yeah.
for a loaded SRS, you're at 24,390. And functionally, really, as far as I can tell, the only difference from a powertrain perspective is the SR has a little smaller controller. So it is a little more limited, I believe, in what you could unlock in terms of torque and horsepower, but otherwise is pretty much the same bike as the SRF and SRS. But I do like the idea that somebody could get into the bike for under 20, and then, if they decide, because there are some people, let's face it, their idea of motorcycling is 25 to 40 miles and then turn around and come back. And for those folks, yeah, you don't really need all that battery power. I mean, for somebody buying a bike to commute or just to run down the street to, meet some friends or do whatever, I can see it. So I'll go ahead and give it to them. I'll also give it to them because they're a very small company, and bottom line, I want them to survive. And they don't publish production numbers, but I think we all know those production numbers have got to be pretty darn small. So anyway, but I think one of the things that we do want to talk about before we end up saying goodbye is that Cipher system, but compare it to Zero's history. Zero, whether you're talking the old S and SR app or the current SRF and SRS app, we all know those apps have not been perfect. And of course, in the Zero community, there's that whole magic charge issue. And are we going to see that finally solved in the spring of 2022?
Yeah, my theory there is, this is kind of one of the things I got excited about this. First of all, I should say, I don't really experience the magic charge nearly as bad as a lot of people do. So I do feel for them. The worst I've ever seen it is, key off the bike, key on, and I might have gained like 3 or 4%, maybe 5%. And then sometimes I'm charging to 100 and I'm running at like 6-7 kilowatts at 100%. That tells me that it's not really 100%. But some people have it pretty bad. So my thought about that is, I think this kind of explains potentially why we haven't seen a fix for that yet, because clearly they've been, diving into these new Cipher 3 Plus updates. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that there will be a major update that turns on all of these Cipher Store features, and that fixed is included in that update. I certainly hope so. The only thing I wish is that I think it's pretty obvious that Zero should come out and say something, because this is obviously a widespread issue. And when it comes to stuff like that, like, again, I work for a manufacturer, stuff goes wrong. There's software bugs are normal, and supply chain issues are a thing, especially right now. I think transparency is one of the coolest things you can have, especially if you have a tight niche community like Zero does. I think they should just come out and say, hey, look, guys, it was a software bug. We screwed up. We're sorry. We've been working on it, but we really wanted to make it part of this whole Cipher 3 Plus, so that we're not spending our valuable time on old stuff and we're focused on what's next. So I promise you guys, there's something coming that'll fix it. Hang in there. Like, I wish they would just come out with something like that.
No, I agree. And
yeah.
As you know, there is a robust Facebook Zero community, and we do know that Zero monitors that group. So yeah, to have them jump in once in a while would be wonderful. I think it would do nothing but favors, because people are quick to complain. But I think if you're open with people and you let them know you're working on it, especially the Zero community, I think they're going to be pretty understanding about it. Because I think I hear a lot of complaints about Zeros, but I also get I don't know, I get the feeling it's probably a fairly small group, and that by and large owners are pretty happy. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke. I mean, Zeros aren't perfect. In fact, my 2014, I had a lot of problems with that bike. And, thankfully my 2020, which is 9,000 and some miles right now, has been rock solid. The build quality is so much better. I've not had any overheating issues here in hot Florida. I've not had any electronic issues, which was a constant problem with my 2014. But anyway, that's ancient history at this point. The question is what Zero does going forward.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I think I've abused my SRF more than anybody ever should.
Now you're over 19,000, aren't you? Or what's your?
Yeah, I'm right about 19,000. So I had a lot of fun out there. I 2,600 miles to go coast to coast, but I ended up packing another 2,400 on. I just got in the groove of touring over there. So 5,000 miles in 12 days. Yeah, through some brutal conditions there in some circumstances. So yeah, it is a heck of a platform. They did a great job, and I agree with you that the squeaky wheels are always the loudest, and so what we see is those people, expressing their mind, and it's just because they want action. Some people think that that's the way to get action. But yeah, I agree that probably the vast majority of Zero owners are very happy and loyal. And I think that if Zero did craft a message like that, it would be well received, even by the squeaky wheels. Because again, the reason why they're doing it is they just want something. They want action of some kind. So my thoughts.
Yeah, no, and we've been talking a while, so at this point, folks are probably ready to say goodbye to us anyway. But I do want to thank you for making so much time to talk to me. I think we're all pretty excited about some of the advancements Zero is making for the 2022 model year, and it's going to be fun to see what comes in spring when they roll out the update and make the new power tank available, whether there's any more surprises up their sleeve, because occasionally we have seen Zero do winter announcements early in the year. So who knows, maybe even more is coming in the not too distant future.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks, Bill. I always appreciate spending time with you, and I'll start making room in my garage for that 2022 SRS.
Sounds
with
good.
7.3 kilowatt hours.
And I'm going to look forward to our next ride. It'll be fun to meet up somewhere.
All right, man. Take care.
If you've enjoyed this episode of EV Rider, please give it a like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more motorcycling videos along with the people and places that make Florida special.